I've talked about how one can know he or she is going through mental health. I've talked about the types, the most common types, as the anxiety disorder, the depression, the most common one that comes along the way when people are healing, the post-traumatic stress disorder. And then I've talked about the problems and the outcomes when one is going through this mental health issue. And then I'm going to talk about the causes of mental health issues in our society where we come from. Let me talk about the most common one and the most serious one as the diseases. When we talk about the diseases, we can talk about, let's talk about HIV. When one comes to know that they're HIV positive, what do you think comes into their mind? First of all, when one is positive, we look at the end result. And most people don't want to go to hospitals to check for their status. Why? What will come after they're being told? That's why in most cases, when people go for HIV screening, HIV testing, they pass them through what we can call a pre-test counseling, whereby they prepare someone for the news that might come out, either positively or negatively. But let's assume when one comes out, he or she is positive. What do you think they go through? Let's assume they are not prepared in the pre-test counseling. And then they tell you, you know what, John, you're positive. Do you know what people go through in them, how people perceive such news? Of course, they perceive them wrongly. First of all, they will think about the drugs, taking ARVs for the whole of their entire life, which they are not used to. They think about death. When one turns positive, you're already dead. And that changes their lifestyle, their behavior change, how they've perceived the news, their thoughts, their feelings. In feelings, that's when I talked about they feel that they are going to die. They think about the taking of drugs. And the most scary part about HIV is they think about herpes, CCP. That scares them a lot. And another thing is, among the diseases, we have the chronic disease, where one will be sick forever. We can talk about cancer. We all know cancer is a dangerous disease. We have the prostate cancer, we have the throat cancer, we have a lot of cancerous issues. And when you contact cancer, what will come into your mind? How have you perceived this? Death. Another thing we have there, another disease we have is infertility in both men and women. When they tell you that, you know what, you've been having this series of women, but you don't produce, how will you perceive this? So we are talking about infertility in men and women, but it's all about the perception. How have you perceived this into your mental status, into your cognitive status? How are you understanding this? At the end of the day, people without enough knowledge or people who are illiterate, they will perceive it in the wrong way. And then it triggers their mental health to be healed or sick. Another factor that I can talk about, and it is the most common, I'll talk about the relationship issues. Young girls, young boys, ladies and gentlemen, the relationship factor is really another issue, whereby in most cases we get into relationships that are not communicated, and we have too much of expectation that we don't communicate to our partners when we are entering into a relationship. And then the more you stay in this relationship, remember, you didn't communicate to your partner what are your expectations, what are your goals in this relationship. At the end of the day, you get disappointed, and then you get into a depression mode. Another factor or another cause of mental illness, let me talk about the law. I can talk about the judicial proceedings or the judicial decisions. Let's assume one is being taken to court because of a building, or he has a loan. And then the decisions come back not on his side. What do you expect such a person to go through? Or the judicial proceedings, the facts from court, if they are not on your side, what do you think? Let's talk about talk about the gender. In most cases, we talk about gender-based violence. We talk about the gender conformity, whereby in our society, we have there is a law that came in our country, whereby they were talking about gender, women emancipation, whereby men and women were supposed to be taken as the same. But when you go back to culture, men are taken as superior to women. So men end up taking the superiority above ladies, and then this affects the ladies so much, and then in most cases it results them into what we call stress, and then it goes through it takes them through a series of depression, and then into mental health. When we talk about other causes of mental health, we can talk about the drugs. In drugs, we have the injectables, and then we have the usage, whereby we have those that use and those that inject or take. Among the drugs, we have cocaine, we have marijuana, we have pethidine, and others that lead others into mental health. Another cause of mental health, I can talk about promotions. Promotions, it's a bit wide, whereby we can talk about job promotion, family promotion, family prestige. Let's assume when you sign a contract that shows that every after 3 years you're supposed to be promoted, and then they recruit a junior one, and he or she is promoted in a period of 1 year, what will come into your thoughts? How will you perceive this? And this can result you into a depression. From depression, and then you get sick of mental health. Your mental health status gets sick, or you get into something that you don't understand. Another issue, or another cause, and in most cases in our life, it is the most serious one, is the loss of our dear ones. Let's assume you've lost your mother. She's the only one who had remained. You lost your father a long time ago, and then you've lost your mother. What do you think? You've stayed alone. Who will be helping you in this? Your mom has been waking you up. Your mom has been thinking for you. Your mom has been giving you this kind of extra care. Who will be there to give you this extra care? You've stayed in the world alone. So this also triggers people's mental health status, and then they end up being in a situation that they don't understand, and this results them to think the other way around, of committing suicide, of isolating themselves from society, locking themselves up, all that kind of fracas that happens after one loses their dear one. Another, and it is the last, I can talk about the family affairs. You know, in our families, where we have actually, in family affairs, in most cases, we can talk about the women. Nowadays, you see a woman is the mother, is the powerhouse of the family. He supports in every situation. She buys food, she pays school fees for the children. Men no longer care. So family affairs. And then in our society, we always know women cannot take care of their father's property, or they cannot be the heirs. We know that it is the boys that are supposed to be the heir of the family. Also, that triggers ladies or women's thoughts, and then they end up getting into what we call stress that triggers into depression up to the end result, which is mental health. So those are some of the causes of mental health. I've talked about mental health in general. I've talked about the causes, whereby I've highlighted some of the few causes that can lead one, he or she, to get into a poor mental health status. And then I've talked about the outcomes or the problems of mental health, we've talked about hunger, panic attacks, and then blackouts. Then I've also given you some of the types of mental health, whereby we've talked about the bipolar disorder, the anxiety disorder, the depression, the disruptive, the eating disorders. So in a conclusion, that's what I can tell you about mental health in our societies.